Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Fraud Show, a podcast highlighting everything you need to know to fight fraud. My name is Soltan Hassanieh, and I use my experience as an internal auditor and my knowledge as a certified fraud examiner to spread awareness, helping you detect frauds and stop fraudsters. Thank you for joining us today. Hi there, welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Fraud podcast. Being scammed leaves you feeling so angry, and it hurts in many different ways, and that's okay. And many of us keep those incidents to themselves because we're embarrassed after all. We consider ourselves smart enough not to fall to such scams. Well, trust me, they can happen to anyone without you even being aware of it. So you need to protect yourself in advance. Learning how fraudsters think is important, and taking advice from experts is also important. Listening to this podcast is definitely going to help you do that. So let us fight fraud together. Stay tuned. In this episode, we'll be talking more about cybercrimes, and after that, we'll be listening to your stories with fraud. Cybercrimes are spreading lately with the advance of the technologies. The internet has become a huge marketplace for buying and selling everything you can imagine, where you can get great deals, but sometimes you can be scammed. Today, we'll be talking about two concepts used within the virtual world: malware and the ransomware. As usual, we will start by defining the concepts. So what is malware? Malware scammers send emails and social media messages at random with suspicious links holding titles of something topical, like the latest news or events or something interesting. Clicking on the link may take you to a fake website that looks like a real deal, complete with logos and branding of a legitimate website. In order to view the video, you'll be asked to install some softwares to be able to access the video format. The moment you download the software, your computer will be infected with a malware. It's a malicious software. That's not everything. Another way of delivering a malware scam is through website and pop-ups that offer free file downloads, including music, movies, and games, and free access to content. Malware scams work by installing softwares on your computer that allow scammers to access your files and watch what you're doing on your computer. Scammers use your information to steal your personal details and commit fraudulent activities. They may make unauthorized purchases on your credit card, or use your identity to open bank accounts and issue SIM cards and a lot of other stuff. They might take out loans or carry out other illegal business under your name, or even sell your information to other scammers. That was malware. Now, let's talk about ransomware. Ransomware is a type of a malware that blocks or limits access to your computer or files and demands a ransom to be paid to the scammer for them to be unlocked. Scammer uses this method usually to target businesses. What happens is that the infected computers will display messages to convince you into paying the ransom. Sometimes scammers may pretend to be from a police and claims you have committed an illegal activity and you must pay a fine. And they may simply demand payment for a key or to unlock your computer. If you pay the ransom, there is no guarantee your computer will be unlocked. So what are some signs to keep an eye on? Well, first, if you receive an email or a social media message out of the blue that claims to contain links to topical news headlines or something interesting and asks you to download software in order to view materials. Second, music files, games, or access to adult websites are offered free of charge if you download a particular program. Third, a pop-up box starts appearing on your computer screen. These may have simple questions or a button that says close. Last but not least, you notice new icons on your computer screen, or your computer is not as fast as it normally is. We will be giving you tips on how to protect yourself by the end of the podcast. Don't miss that. Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss the show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for the support. Now back to the show. Have you ever been a victim of fraud? Unfortunately, many of us have. Have you ever thought about how often you are asked for your personal information? Like when you are paying for something at the store and the cashier asks you for your mobile number or address. Once you give out this information, you no longer have control over how it is used. And the scary part is that the statistics show that almost 30% of the time, fraudsters get your personal information from stealing such data. We read about how hackers break through big corporations' databases and get such valuable information. It happens a lot, and protecting your personal information should become an automatic response. So when someone asks you for your personal information, question them. Ask them why do they need it and what it is used for. If they didn't give you a valid reason, just don't give it out. You may not always be able to stop someone from stealing data, but you can limit whom you give your information. In the following segment, we will be hearing some of your personal stories with fraud.
Back in 2004, I decided to come and live in this country. So I got here, opened up a bank account, tried to get a good job. And when I went to the bank to get a credit card, the bank customer service officer informed me that I wouldn't qualify because I have an existing unpaid credit with other banks. I was shocked to hear that. I'm like, how can it be ruined if I never lived here? Unfortunately, someone used my name and personal information. I don't know how they did that and how to solve the issue. I had to get my official documents to prove that I wasn't in the country during the transaction period. And it did take me a long time to fix my credit issue. And that's pretty much my story.
I had a particular incident happen to me with fraud when I was working at a cell phone company a few years ago. So what had happened was one of my sales associates activated a phone under my codes illegally and fraudulently. What he did was he basically used fake IDs, a fake social insurance number, registered it under my information, and when we went to go do the audits a couple days later, it came back as fraud. The reason being is because there was no actual customer there to sign for any of the information, there was no active phone numbers, no active IDs or anything, so it came back negative. What he essentially did was he sold the phones online and took the money himself. When the cops found out and when head office found out, it turned into a big, huge ordeal. The cops showed up at the store and I had to end up going to court about it, and he ended up going to court and essentially pleading guilty and going to jail for a couple of years as well. What I learned from this situation was to not give my information out to anybody, even coworkers, even other employees, and to frequently be changing my passwords and all of my information as well too.
I would like to thank our guests for sharing their stories. Such stories might prevent someone else from falling for the same scam. It's all about prevention. I have a couple of tips for you. How can we prevent ourselves from malware and ransomware? First, do not open any attachment and do not click on links in emails or social media messages you have received from strangers. Just press delete. If you want to have access footage or information about major or breaking news, use a reliable news source rather than just unknown web link. Be aware of free download and website access, such as music, games, movies, and adult sites. They may install harmful programs without you knowing. Always keep your computer security up to date with antivirus and anti-spyware softwares and a good firewall. Only buy computer and antivirus softwares from a reputable source. Use your security software to run a virus check if you think your computer security has been compromised. If you still have doubts, contact your antivirus software provider or a computer specialist. Always update your security software, change passwords, and back up your data regularly. Store your backups offline on an external hard disk. Thank you for listening to the Let's Talk Fraud podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review, and don't forget to follow me on social media platforms listed in the description. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and don't forget, where there is a human, there is a fraud.